Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, a conversation with the founder of the House Golden Dome Caucus, a group formed to support the proposed missile shield for the American homeland. With a stratospheric price tag and ambitious amount of territory to protect, the missile defense system is one of President Trump's signature military initiatives. We sat down with a representative to find out where the effort stands in Congress. Join us for the latest in news and analysis, from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. When President Trump proposed a homeland missile defense system called the Golden Dome last year, many balked. But supporters of the initiative, including Colorado Representative Jeff Crank, got to work to get lawmakers behind it. 6 months after he helped create the House Golden Dome Caucus, we caught up with Crank in his office to see where things stood.
Congressman Crank, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I was listening to a hearing from last year where you were talking to military officials about the future of Golden Dome. You talked about the unique perspective that you bring to this issue based on your past policy experience and why you understand maybe some things about the concept and its potential that other people don't.
Yeah.
So I was hoping we could begin there and you could just talk a little bit about what you bring to bear to this position.
Yeah, the question I think that's out there is Golden Dome is it a technically feasible thing to do, or is it just something that we just don't have the will to do? And I think all of the experts that I talk to tell us that it's technically feasible to do. It's something we can achieve. It's going to be a difficult thing to do, but that's when America's at its best, is when we're stretching the bounds of what we can technologically do. And so I start with that. I was a Hill staff person here in the 1990s. I worked on the House Armed Services Committee. Well, I didn't work for the committee itself. I worked for a member who was on the committee, Joel Heffley from Colorado. And he was a big advocate for the Strategic Defense Initiative at the time. And there were people then who said, this can't be done. We can't, they would say, you can't shoot a missile out of the air with another missile. That's impossible. Well, it was back then, but it very quickly became possible because we applied the technology and we let America do what it does best, which is go out and innovate. And so I think we're at that same moment here where people can say, it's not possible to do things like Golden Dome. But again, it wasn't possible to put a man on the moon when America decided we were going to do that. And so when we're able to do that, that's when America is at its best. And I think Golden Dome is a perfect example of that. We're going to look back on these moments as the defining moments that we finally decided that we were going to protect ourselves. And really, it's been a decades-long pursuit. You go back to what was called Star Wars back then, the Strategic Defense Initiative, derisively called Star Wars, I think, by people who didn't support it. But that was Ronald Reagan's dream, is that there would be a shield over the United States that would protect us. And we still today hear people say, well, it might not protect all of them. And, if there's X number of missiles coming in, could we be able to protect it from that? Well, if it's your city that gets protected, that you represent, if it's the city of Los Angeles that gets protected by a ballistic missile defense shield or a Golden Dome-like shield, is it worth it? I would say it is. And I think the residents of Los Angeles would say it is. Yeah.
So when you launched this caucus with co-chair Congressman Dale Strong about 7 months ago, you called it an educational clearinghouse for think tanks, for the military, for Congress. So can you take us inside that work, what it's looked like since then?
Yeah, and we're not where we want to be right now, and I think it's really because the Golden Dome architecture, as of right now, has not been formally signed off on by the administration. I mean, we've had some briefings about what it's going to look like, and General Gutlein in my estimation, has done a great job of working to develop it. But way back then, when we first formed the Golden Dome Caucus, it just kind of occurred to us that it's going to be one of those things that we have to educate other members. Congress is an interesting place. We all come with different talents and backgrounds and knowledge. And, if you're on the Armed Services Committee, you probably know a little bit more than you do if you're on, natural resources like I am, or the Financial Services Committee, about things like Golden Dome. But most of the members of Congress aren't on the Armed Services Committee. And so we have to go out and help, I guess, kind of socialize this amongst members of Congress so that people do understand. First of all, we overcome that thought that it's not possible. That we want to show that it is technically feasible and possible to do Golden Dome. But then to be able to bring in experts from industry and others to help us, help educate members why this is important from not only a political standpoint, but from a national security standpoint. And then help us get over the line on support for Golden Dome. And it's not just, of course, Golden Dome isn't just ballistic missile defense. It's, defense against drones. It's a defense against all sorts of other threats that are out there. And that in and of itself, I think we need to kind of break that thought in some people's mind. They think it's all just about incoming ballistic missile threat. And so I think there's going to be a lot of other committees, Homeland Security and many others, that will need to be brought in to make Golden Dome successful, Judiciary Committee, others, to give the military the authorities that they need, things like that. So this is really a way to try and build that consensus amongst members of Congress and allow industry to come in and help really shape what it's going to look like.
So are you winning colleagues over? What are the building blocks to creating that consensus that you're looking for?
Well, I mean, I think until we get the architecture, it's going to be difficult to kind of really advance the ball. And I really do hope that the administration signs off on that. They've got very aggressive goals to get Golden Dome deployed in a very timely fashion. Well, to meet that goal, we're really going to have to start right with the architecture as it's designed. So I think where we are today is obviously we're waiting for that architecture. And the first thing we want to do is actually bring General Gutlein in to talk about that architecture with members. And then once we do that, we can start going and building the consensus and letting people see, a lot of members of Congress seeing the role that companies in their district will play in Golden Dome. So we aren't there yet, and we've got a lot of work to do.
What are you hearing from the administration, but also from General Gutlein, who's the czar of Golden Dome, and from the Space Force about when you might see that architecture, or is it just a waiting game?
Well, it's certainly been frustrating because we thought that we'd have it at the end of 2025, and we haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've been briefed on the architecture in a classified setting, but we need to, obviously we're waiting for the president to sign off on what that architecture looks like so that we can move forward. So it's definitely been something that many of the supporters of Golden Dome are anxious to get moving on. We just, we can only push so much. We just need the president to sign off and say, let's go. But I mean, as you know, in the One Big Beautiful Bill or the Reconciliation Bill, we actually already allocated quite a bit of money to Golden Dome, $25 billion to Golden Dome. So if we're going to use that the way that Congress intended for that money to be used, we need a plan and we need to move forward.
When we come back, more from our conversation with a founding member of the House Golden Dome Caucus. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. As the Appropriation and Oversight Authority, Congress has a central role in the future of the Golden Dome. So we sat down with Representative Jeff Crank from Colorado to find out how the project is going. Here's part of our conversation.
Contracts are going out. That's something that's happening. I saw something like 2,000 companies have already joined the contract vehicle as of December.
Yeah, and they're doing some inventive contracting, right? To let, I think one of the ways that this is going to be successful, and we're finding this, I think, not just in Golden Dome, but in all of the Department of War now, is finding new ways to do procurement and acquisition. Obviously, we're going to need, for something this big, we're going to need some of the bigger contractors that we all know about in the defense space to be able to do some of these things. You couldn't send someone to the moon with just a mom and pop rocket shop, right? You need the big the big companies to do that. But we also need innovative smaller companies to be able to come in that have more flexibility sometimes than these bigger companies to come in. And so I think the way that it seems like they're setting it up for the acquisition process within Golden Dome is kind of a hybrid. There will be, milestones that get met and things like that to be able to get more money, and different companies competing for different proposals. So I think it's a good way to get moving on it. We just need to have the whole plan laid out so that everybody can see what the overall architecture looks like.
Well, getting back to that theme of sort of where are we and a little bit of frustration with a lack of movement, it seems like a new initiative every week. It's very exhausting to be a reporter right now. So with announcements last month, for example, the Golden Fleet and these battleships, we were just talking about it previously before this interview. Do you worry that this is sort of getting overcome by events or losing some of the momentum that it had when it was first announced?
Well, it's really the reason we formed the caucus, and we do need to get going on it. We want the president to be successful in this. This was a bold initiative. Golden Dome is a very bold initiative, and it's one that I supported the minute it was laid out, because I think it's been a vulnerability that most Americans don't understand that we have. So, but in order to do that, we've got to have, you can't just have support within the administration. It can't just be an executive order. An executive order has to have money behind it, and the only one that can do that is Congress. So it's certainly not where we want to be right now. I'd like to be 3 or 4 more months ahead of where we are right now. But again, this is a complicated system, most complicated defense system we've ever done as a country. So, and I will say, I think General Gutlein is the exact right person for this role. And I've told him that in briefings before. I told him, in fact, I said, someday you'll look back with, your grandkids and be able to talk about this wonderful thing that you did for America by being able to help do the architecture on this. So very complicated, but it's certainly not where we want it to be right now. And we just have to get moving.
Can you talk more about your relationship with General Gutlein, how often you're communicating with him, and how confident the Space Force and General Gutlein himself are that they have the technological wherewithal to execute on this?
Well, sure. I wouldn't say I'm real close with General Gutlein. Obviously just knowing his background and what he's done, I think he's the right person. And then seeing, and again, this was in a classified setting that we can't talk about, but just seeing the architecture as he laid it out, I'm confident that it's, that it's a good architecture and that they're doing all that they can to get there. But again, this is a very difficult technical challenge that we're going to have to meet, but can only be met if we have the resources to do it. And the only way we can do that is by having support in Congress to do it.
Something you were very clear about with the launch of the caucus was that this has to be executed on the president's timeline. That's really critical to the success of the whole.
Right.
Could you unpack that? And why is it so important to you that the timeline does not slip?
Well, I think it's important. We have leadership right now. We have a president that is committed to Golden Dome. And, that may not always be the case. We saw that after Ronald Reagan left office. There were other administrations that came on that didn't support the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, at the time. So from a political standpoint, I think it's important. But when you're trying to prove that something is technically feasible, you have to have a timeline that you meet. John F. Kennedy came in with a timeline for us to put a man on the moon. Had he not done that, I think it would be easy for all of us to say, well, it's just kind of too hard as a country, or we have this diversion over here or over here. And so to me, from that standpoint, we need to make sure that we're really focused on trying to meet that deadline, but also so that we can prove that it'll work. And we have some proving to do. As I said, I still have colleagues here that are still saying the same thing. Oh, it's never going to work. Well, the only way you prove that is to do it, and do it on the timeline that you set out to do.
When we come back, our financial expert returns with tips on demystifying debt solutions. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Do you know the difference between debt management and debt settlement? On this episode of Money Minute, Jeanette Mack from Navy Federal Credit Union returns with tips to demystify debt solutions.
Debt management is all about taking positive steps forward, not risky shortcuts. If you're feeling overwhelmed about it, try to take it easy on yourself. There are lots of helpful solutions designed to put you back in control. Just know the safest way isn't always the fastest. So first, let's talk debt management programs. These are financial safety nets. With a certified credit counselor, you'll build a budget, negotiate lower interest rates, and make one monthly payment. No new loans, no risky moves. Over 3 to 5 years, you pay off your unsecured debts in full, and you get financial education to keep you on track. Debt settlement companies promise quick fixes, but there's a catch. They often tell you to stop paying your creditors and stash money in an account they control. Once you've saved enough, they try to negotiate a lower payoff with your creditor, but at a steep fee. There's no guarantee, and your credit score could take a serious hit. Settled debts are marked with credit bureaus as less than full amount, which can haunt your credit for years. Bottom line, debt management gets you full repayment, safer credit, and better financial habits. Debt settlement is risky and can leave lasting damage. If you're struggling, nix the quick fix and seek out reputable credit counseling.
To get more coverage of military and defense topics, climb out of that Chinook and rush with your squad to militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more headlines. And to be the most up-to-date machine gunner in the Marines, sign up for our Early Bird Brief, compiled each morning to bring you the most recent news. Finally, if social media is where you collect open source intelligence, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. And for you junior troops, we're on TikTok, so go follow us there as well. When we return, we wrap up our conversation with Colorado Representative Jeff Crank about Washington's progress towards realizing the Golden Dome. Welcome back. To round out the show this week, we get some final updates from a founding member of the House Golden Dome Caucus on lawmakers' progress on the proposed missile shield.
Is there a point that you would countenance, and I know you're not the only decider in the mix here, kind of pulling back on some of the goals and saying we'll do sort of a reduced range version of this, or do something that seems achievable now, a minimum viable, and see if we can expand it later?
Well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't rule anything out. Any system is better than the system we have now. Any improved system is better than the system that we have now. But I think it is technically feasible, and I think at the end of the day, it will be an expensive system. There's no doubt, but I think it will not be as expensive as many people think it will be today because of the technology. You look at AI and some of the other things that really will drive. AI will play a big part in Golden Dome for sure, and it will play a big part in driving the cost of Golden Dome down over the life of that. Where will AI systems, say, incorporated into AI? Where will those be 5 years from now as opposed to today? Those are going to be drivers of lowering cost of systems, as an example. So, again, I believe in it as it has been laid out conceptually by the president, and I also believe in the plan that I saw briefed by General Gutlein and hopefully that the president will sign off on.
Are there any public misconceptions about Golden Dome that you bump up against pretty regularly in terms of how it will work, its scope, if every American city is going to be protected from missiles equally? Can you talk about some of that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, even among people who should be experts on it. And I don't consider myself one. I'm just, a policymaker, but we talked about people thinking that it's just ballistic missile defense, and it's really not. It's to protect us from a whole range of other threats. So that's one. The fact that it will have to be a layered approach, right? It's not going to be like one system. I think there's a conception that it would be, just a laser that they fire a laser and it eliminates the threat. Clearly going to have to be more of a layered approach. Some of it would be space-based, some of it would be land-based. I mean, I think there's just a lot of misconceptions out there about what it would be and, what it would protect. And I don't want to get into too much of what the system as it's briefed would protect. But, there are going to be layered approaches that protect different levels of things. But overall, it's going to be the best system that anyone in the world has. And it will far exceed what Israel has right now because it's much more complicated, obviously, to protect a geographic area the size of the continental United States and, Alaska and Hawaii than it is to protect a smaller country like Israel. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there for sure, both amongst the public and I think amongst policymakers as well.
And finally, clearly a lot hinges on getting that architecture that you need from the administration, getting that out in the space that you can work with it. But what else are you hoping to accomplish with the caucus through the end of this year?
Well, we'd love to obviously start with that architecture and lay it out and do a briefing for the members in the caucus. And we want the caucus, by the way, to be a bipartisan caucus. Right now, we've got a lot of Republicans that are signing up for it. But there's Democrats, and I've talked to several of them, trying to get them on board to joining the caucus and making it a bipartisan issue. This shouldn't be a partisan thing just because President Trump came up with it. It's a good idea. And as I've said many times, a good thing that Israel has what they have with Iron Dome right now. We want to make it bipartisan, but we want to use it really to just educate members about the threat that's there and the technology to counter that threat, and really just build consensus, bring in industry so that they can help educate members about the technology that's out there to do this. This stuff is possible for us to do. Only in the United States of America do we have the ability and the technological advancement to get this done.
Well, that's all the time we have left in this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.